So if you've stumbled upon this video because you're trying to figure out if you or a loved one is having a stroke, here's the bottom line. You or they are. What you need to do right now is stop searching for answers, stop reading articles, stop listening to this video, and call 911. They will walk you through the steps. The biggest thing I want you to note is that after 4 hours, there's nothing that any medical professional can do for you or your loved one if they're having a stroke. And 70% of males and 60% of females that had a major stroke didn't get to medical attention, didn't get to the hospital within 4 hours. So know this, if you think it, why continue to try and figure out if it's actually that? I get it, it's scary. You probably don't want to admit it. You'd rather not. But 911 is a free call. So with that being said, if you're not convinced, know this. I had a stroke 2 years ago today, the date that I am recording this. And so on the anniversary, I always put together a couple of videos to talk about my experience. So if you're in those dire situation, I hope that you won't continue to listen and you'll simply call 911. You know, the Stroke Association has put together an acronym called FAST. So if the face is drooping, if the arm on either side is limp or basically gone dead, if the speech is slurred, then it's time to call 911. With this being said, that's what we did. We got to the hospital, most likely I would guess at about within 30 minutes of when my stroke started. So I did what you did. I researched, right? I started looking. I was like, what's going on? So I was having tingling on the left side of my body. It was about 1 a.m. And I thought, well, maybe my back is just having a little issue. Got up, got a drink of water, got back into bed. And I noticed that the tingling was getting stronger and really was then only on one side of my body, the left side. And as I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to figure out, maybe what this is, not at all thinking stroke. And I just basically Google left side of body tingling and everything came up stroke. And my first reaction was, well, there's no way I'm having a stroke. At the time, I'm not even quite 50 years old. But with that, I had some issues with high blood pressure. I just started some high blood pressure medication. I had high cholesterol through the roof. The blood pressure I was walking around with for quite a bit of time was 180 over 120. 2 years later, I'm pretty much averaging about 124 over 74. That's pretty much my average. 2 years ago, I weighed right at about 250 pounds. I now weigh 170 pounds, so it was definitely a wake-up call. But back to the night that this was going down, I'm laying there researching. I come across an article that I'm going to give you a link to. I don't know why you want to read it if you think that this is going on, but it was put out by Harvard Medical Association. And what struck me was the headline, which is that most don't get to the hospital within 4 hours that had a major stroke. And that 4-hour mark is what really piqued my concern. So I woke up my fiance, now wife, and I said, hey, I'm having these issues. Well, about that time, I'm really now concentrating, and really you could draw a line down the middle of my body. And I was having strong tingling. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow, there is tingling in every single toe, in my heel, in my shin, in my thigh. And as I just go up my body, the left side of my body, the torso, my shoulder, my hand, all of my fingers, has this very strong tingling, like stars. And at that point, I started to feel it go up my face, the tingling. And so Amanda very quickly was like, well, we're getting to the hospital ASAP. And so very quickly we got dressed and started heading that way. Of course, At that point, this is now continuing, and that numbness is now starting to set in all on my left side of my body. That tingling has now gone up my face and is starting to go down the back of my head, and now turning all of it into numbness. Now, I was in pretty good spirits. We got to the nearest ER, and they did some initial checks, and they said, well, we're getting an ambulance here, because this ER was about a mile and a half away from our house. They said, we're going to get an ambulance here, and we're going to get you over to the stroke unit in a bigger hospital, which luckily was only about 3 miles from there. So bottom line is that I show up in great spirits. This was Mercy Health in Oklahoma City. Phenomenal job. I mean, I felt like very quickly I did all the rounds, CT tests, they did MRI, they did it with contrast, they checked my heart, made sure I didn't have a hole in my heart. And bottom line is this has started to get stronger. And with that being said, I made it back to the room, and I'm still in great spirits, and I'm kind of thinking, well, you know, that's probably all there is to this. And at this point, we're probably a couple hours into when this woke me up. So we're probably around 3:30 a.m. or so. And when we were then waiting for kind of the results, wonderful, bubbly young doctor came in who's a speech pathologist. And she said, hey, listen, for you to be able to eat and drink without a nurse present, I just need to do a couple of tests with you, real easy. And that'll be a determinant if you can eat and drink without somebody being here that's a medical professional. So she said, I'm going to give you 2 numbers, and I just want you to say them backwards. Now, of course, I'm not going to remember the numbers, but she said, let's just say it was 5, 6. And I heard 5, 6, but I could not figure out how to say it back to her backwards. So I couldn't figure out how to say 6, 5. And now I could repeat back to her the numbers of 5, 6 in order, but I couldn't figure out how to say it back to her backwards. So immediately I'm kind of concerned and feeling now all of a sudden a little emotional about it. And the next thing she said was, well, I want you to draw a clock for me, a good old-fashioned clock. So she gave me a piece of paper and a pen, and I'm staring at it, and I have no idea how to draw a clock. And so she said, well, I'm going to show you a picture underneath my clipboard. She flashes up the clipboard. It's a picture of a clock. I go, oh, yes. So I draw a circle. Now, she said, I want you to put the arms, old-fashioned clock, the arms to whatever time she told me to set it at. Couldn't do that. Couldn't figure out which was the big hand or the little hand, where to draw it, how to make that actually tell the time that it was. And she did some other tests where basically some very short-term memory, telling me a few facts and some short sentences and then asking me questions about it that I couldn't answer. So the good news here is that because I was at the hospital soon enough, they were able to take action. And probably around the 3-hour mark, 3.5-hour mark, the numbness started to turn back into the stars, and still had a lot of numbness in my face. The good news is that I had no physical reasons for the stroke, meaning I didn't have any clogged arteries. I wasn't going to require any type of surgery. They were showing no signs of brain damage. We went a couple of weeks later because I had an aftershock, and they did those same tests and also checked my brain, and no signs of any type of brain damage, thank goodness. But with that, what the neurologist told me and everybody in the stroke unit was telling me, and mostly by memory from Amanda, was that they couldn't understand why I went in so quickly. And they said, so why did you come in? Now, of course, every time they asked, I didn't recall what was already previously asked to me. And I would say to each one of these medical professionals, from occupational to speech pathologist, etc., I said, well, I was having tingling. They said, no, we know that you had the symptoms, but what made you come in? Because especially with men, they don't come in. They either ride it out or they play it off or they don't take any kind of precaution. So what caused you to get in here right away? And I said, well, I read this article that said I've only got 4 hours before they cannot do anything for me. And Amanda saying, well, we're just going to get to the hospital, and why sit around and wonder and continue to research? Why not just take the precautions? So because I was there early enough, we were able to basically start to do the actions that then caused the stroke, the blood clot, to break up. And the other thing that the neurologist told me, and I had some follow-ups, was that in the medical world, this is going to be written up as what's called a TIA. It's a transit something attack, okay? And I'm going to give you some links in the body of this, which if you're in an emergency situation, I'm sure you're not listening, but maybe you're coming back to it. But with that, what the neurologist said is, unfortunately, it will be written up as a TIA. And it will be unfortunately told to you, basically through time, that you had what's called a minor stroke or a mini stroke. But what he reassured me of is that you had a stroke, period, the end. He said many times you have a TIA, and then within 30 to 90 days is then when you're going to have a major stroke. And one of the things the neurologist told me was that they release patients that got to them within 4 hours. The stroke didn't last more than 4 hours. It was written up as a TIA. And that patient is unable to talk. That patient is unable to use one side of their body. That patient may have a year to 2 full recovery physically. So what he reassured me is that you had a stroke, mini or not. And with that being said, he also said, as well as all the other professionals, please spread the word. Tell your friends, tell people that the key here is that there's only 4 hours to do something about this and get in. And with that, I feel very fortunate that I did do that. And with that being said, that stroke, even though it was minor, if you will, lasting 3.5 hours, I did have tingling really in my face for probably about 17 hours. But it literally wiped my memory going back probably 3 or 4 months. See, when you have a stroke and there's a blood clot, what's happening there, it's not necessarily brain damage, but it's basically frying the wires in your head that tell your body to do certain things, or memory. And so, cannot remember certain things. So I've had circumstances where I'm going back and looking at my work in August or September or early October. And, luckily I've got files and notes and all that stuff. And I don't recall any of the facts and circumstances, don't recall the activities of my life related to that time period. And then really for probably about 10 days after that, literally no memory of it. I was told by Amanda that we were watching a TV show. It ends. Amanda, I think, has just walked in. And I said, oh my gosh, you just missed the best show. And she said, well, we've been sitting here talking about it, and I watched it with you. And I was like, no, you didn't? I really? So 10 days of really kind of hardcore, very short-term memory loss. And then probably really up to 30 days past this mini stroke, really struggled with memory loss, a short-term memory loss. And I did notice the only physical thing was that I had trouble because the stroke's on the left side, so you're typically going to have issues on the other side. But I did notice that kind of when you really think I'm going to tear a piece of paper off, just little things. So I want you to think how amazing our brains are that we can pick up a piece of paper. So I just picked this piece of paper up. And my brain, without really even thinking, knew how to basically grab this, clutch this piece of paper without crushing it, right? And I was able to pick it up without dropping it, right? Meaning right now. But I had noticed probably for about 6 to 9 months, just it was more in the beginning and then less and less and less. But those fine motor skills, so just picking up a piece of paper, I had to then really think about it. If we were out to eat and I had noise going on and having conversation, I couldn't hold a fork. And I would drop the fork, or the fork I would, unfortunately stab my cheek, and so really for probably about 3 months, we just didn't go out, especially related to eating. And all to say that was a minor stroke. The good news is that I went back several times and always got cleared cognitively. So as a CPA, I make my money, bread and butter, with my brain. And so it was definitely a wake-up call of how important it is to take care of myself. With that being said, it really was then also massive exhaustion for probably a good 3 months. And then up to 6 months was basically, on average getting 12 hours of sleep at night. So one of the things that I really took away, and I do, I reviewed the notes from the stroke manager at the team and with Amanda's help. But one of the things that they had told me was that this really came from stress. And when they were talking through what my day's like and my week and all that, it was filled with really, truthfully, nothing but wonderful things. Life was going great, still is, but I was doing a lot. Had a full practice, doing seminars and videos and traveling and all the things that we do also beyond that. And so I was just kind of all the time working and doing things and having a blast and enjoying it and wanting more. But they also noted that my career has been full of working many, many extra hours for a tax season for a decent amount, probably a third of the year, and then not having that kind of overtime. And they said, you cannot work overtime anymore. You're done working overtime. If you work overtime, then really you're putting yourself at risk for death. And especially this upcoming tax season. The stroke was October 13th, actually 2 days before the final extension deadline. This was in 2021, wrapping up the 2020 tax returns. Luckily, I already had all the tax returns done by then, thankfully, for my wonderful clients. But I really took that to heart. So I had to make a really difficult decision, and I had to downsize my practice. Now you could go, well, why didn't you hire more people? Well, that's stressful. I had to downsize my practice, and so I had to make some very tough, but really being reminded many times by Amanda and Alona in my office that I'm making like life-saving decisions. And it really kind of came down to, bottom line is the clients that we almost don't have to ask for their stuff, it just comes. And the goal was we were going to have everything done by the end of tax season. So what were the clients that I could retain that we would have them done by April 15th? And therefore, what does that require? Organization, getting things done early. The other thing is I was not going to be able to work any overtime. So I had to figure out, well, how many hours is that, right? And I probably can't even work full time. So after the stroke, I gave up my cell phone, stopped getting any emails, didn't get text, and really kind of put a barrier around myself. to fully recover going into that tax season, and really exited any kind of activity related to videos. I canceled seminars, unfortunately, canceled trips to provide seminars, stopped doing YouTube and social media, and really just rested. I did meet with a few clients at my house that I've known forever, and we were just needing to do a little bit of year-end planning. But going into tax season, I knew that, well, I needed to just simply work at home. So I didn't go back into the office probably until about 9 months after the stroke. So we had a regimen. I have a home office, and basically very much a routine. Amanda was ensuring that I was getting a solid breakfast. So I got up at a routine time, started work at a routine time, 8 a.m., stopped for lunch at a routine time, 11:30, took a 30-minute break, and then actually finished every day at 4 p.m. Didn't work past that, didn't work Saturday and Sunday. And the focus was just simply on the work, on the taxes. My number one obligation is to my client, especially during tax season. They're the bread and butter almost of everything. Having this tax practice and working with clients allows me the luxury of doing YouTube and social media and seminars really as a hobby. I just love taxes and what I do just that much. So that tax season, we accomplished that goal. We got all of the tax returns done by April 15th. And we only had 9 clients on extension. It was only because they were waiting on a third party. They were waiting on somebody to get them a K1. So it was very much a success. So with no overtime. Now, one of the things I took away from the report and from what Amanda and Alona is that I was done working overtime forever. And so I have maintained that. So the next tax season, which would have been in 2023, didn't work any overtime, didn't work Saturday and Sunday, haven't brought on any new clients since 2018, and continued to maintain that, obviously downsizing. And so with that, big alterations to my life. Now I slowly got back into doing some seminars and online and social media. And with that, where I'm at now is just very much having to have kind of a strict sense of time management and really ensuring that I'm not doing things beyond maybe 8 hours a day. Now, there are times that I might do something on the weekend here and there. And with that, what I've really taken away from all of that is that with this minor stroke, such a alteration to my life. Now, was that a good thing? Absolutely. Less work, less stress. So removing that stress. Now, part of all of the stress reduction is the wonderful team around me, starting with my wife, Amanda, and how everybody just took what was on my plate off of it and continued what they could, and then helped me slowly put things back on my plate, but my plate is never full. So this summer I took a lot of time off, got married to Amanda. We ended up probably taking almost about 6 weeks off, came back a couple of times for just a day or two, basically a long honeymoon, and really enjoyed the summer, enjoyed post-tax season. We hit the fall, and I maintained that wasn't going to be able to continue to work any kind of overtime. So one of the things that was very interesting, though, is that I was sitting at 250 pounds, as I told you, high blood pressure. Now, I started taking blood pressure medication as well as cholesterol, and the neurologist said, you're going to forever be on a full aspirin every day. You're just going to be on it forever. So it really did take me, and we could be surprised by this, but it almost took me a year to really have the energy to focus in on my diet, to focus in on self-care, because I was just exhausted all the time. Now, I wasn't eating crap, drinking water, eating pretty clean, so to speak. not candy and all, none of that stuff. But once you hit a weight, especially at my age, if you're just kind of maintaining, you're not going to really lose any weight. So in September of 2022, I decided that I was just going to make a life change as it relates to my diet. So with that, I'm going to give you a link to another video where I just talked about basically how I lost 80 pounds. And with that, no tricks of the trade, no counting anything, and actually zero exercise. Now, I will tell you in that video why I did that and why I'm now finally exercising. But with this, it was definitely a wake-up call to change my life in terms of priority of my day, my time management. And there are times it's very frustrating that I want to do more than I am going to allow myself. I could work overtime. I could go back into the schedule that I was running before, but I choose not to because, as one of my longtime clients told me, Jim, he said, listen, it doesn't matter what the gross or top line is in your business in terms of collections. It doesn't matter what you net. It doesn't matter what your accounts receivable are if you're dead. So in the decisions that I was making, it was basically to save my life, so to speak, so to recover and get back to that. So where I'm at now is ever since, I check in with my doctor every month, a great friend and great client. He's just been phenomenal. And check in every month, do blood work often, checking cholesterol, and just really staying on top of all the things that you would learn in blood work. And really everything's in a perfect margin, so to speak, all the numbers that you would look at in your blood count, which has everything to do with losing the weight and what I did to do that, which was, I'll just tell you, it's just basically eating single ingredient food. And that was just, it's meat, a variety of it, and vegetables and fruit, and only drinking water. Stomach shrank, made sure I got plenty of sleep because I think I was really one that ate late, and a lot of weight gain came from stress and eating late, eating before bed, and that usually led to probably not eating healthy, a lot of carbs. And I just maintained it. And I didn't necessarily have a goal in mind other than I was just going to eat correctly. And then everything else corrected itself. So in my pocket right now, I have an aspirin. I never go anywhere without an aspirin. If I'm on a boat with people, I make sure one of them has an aspirin. If I go play golf, I make sure that everybody knows in my right pocket is an aspirin. Amanda always has an aspirin. We have aspirin in the car. We have aspirin around the house because aspirin is what you can do immediately to help, and it's one of the best things. Home remedy doesn't mean you then just do that and nothing else, but to try and combat it immediately is then having that aspirin in your system. So it's always on my mind. It has changed my outlook in terms of, truthfully, like, boy, today is just a blessing. I mean, it sounds like a total cliche, but that's all we got, right? And it really is eye-opening that, wow, it could have either ended or it could have been really bad. So here's what I want you to hear is that it was really pretty much a 2-year recovery. Not only just getting past the memory loss, getting past the exhaustion, getting back to where I had the energy to want to self-care in the sense of just having the discipline to eat healthy and do the diet that I indicated. And with that, during that time period, feeling better and better and better. And now doing light exercise. It's kind of silly to even call it exercise, the things that I'm doing, kind of 7th grade gym type stuff. And with that, I'm feeling great. But it was quite a journey. And of course, couldn't have gotten through it without Amanda, without Alona, without the support of family and friends. And with that, with the support of you as well. And one of the things I've always strived to get back to is being more present on social media and in videos. And many times I have plans to do that and lists of videos. Now I do have a series of videos that'll be coming out, but I've had to basically wait until tax season's done or certain other obligations are done and working it in between. But with that, it's been a light at the end of the tunnel that I've been shooting towards, is being healthy enough and feeling good enough and having the discipline to then have that time management to really try and spin all the plates that I enjoy spinning. Now I play golf, make plenty of time with the family and Amanda, and very much enjoying life. So thanks for listening. And with that being said, hopefully if you've heard anything from here, it's maybe to help you just be aware of if you see somebody or a friend and there's confusion, there's face drooping, something's wrong with their left side of their body or right side of their body. Typically it's the left. Arm not as strong. Maybe they're stunned. They don't really know what's going on. And all you got to do is call 911 and they'll take it from there. Free call to 911. So big thanks to all those that were at the Mercy Stroke Unit, and a big thanks to you. So thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. And my YouTube channel is about taxes. So if you just stumbled across this video, I don't really have videos about health and strokes and all that good stuff. Just thought I would share my story again and a little bit at length and with now a perspective of 2 years. All right. Hey, I don't know how to end a video without saying this, so I'm just going to say it. Thanks for tuning in. I'd love it if you'd subscribe. And then don't you ever forget, you've never met a CPA quite like me. You have a great one.